This is the first video in the How to Program Using Maple series. In this series, I will try to reduce each programming guide chapter to the essentials, but add the key elements I wish they had included. Let's get started. So let's begin to learn how to do the basics. Let's do a simple introduction with some key concepts that will come up repeatedly. Primarily, we're going to be using a code edit region. The reason we're going to use a code edit region, first of all, is it allows us to code within a single execution group. It has the ability to allow us to collapse that execution group and expand it as needed. And it has a series of advantages over just using text or trying to code within a traditional single execution group. You can do syntax highlighting, constant error checking, bracket matching, and quote matching, and of course inserting expressions from palettes, which you can't do if you use traditional 1D math input. So let's begin. Make sure you always have a restart at the beginning of your worksheet. And let's insert the code edit region by clicking on this icon. Virtually all of Maple coding is in the form of writing procedures. So let's write our first procedure. Hello, colon equals, pros, open parentheses, close parentheses. That will say that we're passing no information to this procedure. Shift enter, hello, Maple, end quote. So again, you can see that this text, hello Maple, is enclosed and it's changed color. Make sure we put a semicolon at the end of all statements. That is one of the statements. Shift enter, and we have to end the procedure by putting an end pros. When we hit enter, we get this result. How do we call it? Well, this is a procedure, so we have to say hello. We are going to call it, therefore we're going to pass it information. In this case, actually, no information. When we hit enter, it returns hello Maple. To expand and contract, we can put our cursor on the code edit region, right click, and select collapse code edit region, and now we just have hello, there's the procedure. Okay. If you click on it, you actually execute it with your left mouse button. If you re-click on it with your right mouse button or the two-finger execution, you can therefore expand it. If we were to simply call the procedure hello, it would hide all that information. If you want to see what's involved, you need to evaluate hello. That is because in working with procedures, it uses what's called a last name evaluation as opposed to a full evaluation, which you're used to in Maple. For example, if you say B colon equals A and A colon equals 1, and you ask what is B, it will go through the evaluation and figure out that B is 1. So again, this type of full evaluation does not occur when you ask about the procedure. We will also learn about the evaluation process within a procedure, which turns out to be not as complete as the full evaluation we get on the main line. So 3 parts that are important to procedures. One is certainly going to be making comments. Obviously, we're going to be passing information to procedure, and we hope to be returning information from a procedure. So again, let's build a execution group. So here's how we can create a full script of comments. Put a parentheses, then a star, and now we're basically within comments. Here is my next one. Okay. If I hit Shift Enter, you'll notice now that Maple has created this parentheses period star, and then another star with a close period. Everything within here is a comment. You don't have to have the middle star. This is also a comment. And you can see that this is the color. Okay, let's go to the bottom of our comment, Shift Enter, and now we can put in our new procedure. Shift Enter, my calc, which is a procedure for which we are now going to talk about passing information. Maple is not a strong typing programming language. Therefore, when I say A and B are going to be passed to MyCalc, that's the limit of what's going to be passed. And in fact, you can force an error if you say, if you put a dollar sign, then if someone tries to pass more than A and B to MyCalc, it will cause an error. Shift Enter. And then what we do is we are going to return something. So what I prefer to do is actually put the word in return. So in this particular problem, we're going to return something, and I'm going to take advantage of our palettes. Let's say I want a log base B of A. If I click on this, it fills in the information. And fortunately, because we labeled it log of B A, then it gets returned that way. And then we can even multiply by e to the A. And let's say instead of I want to return times e to the A, I put e to the B. Spacing is not a problem here, and sometimes I put spacing between that, but I always try to make sure that the parentheses are right next to the function. In addition, you can see how every time you are at one bracket, the other bracket gets identified. So the problem of closing brackets or making sure that you have proper pairs of brackets goes away with the coded region. Make sure you put a semicolon to end each statement, and then you can end your procedure. And again, if you put it this way, it will write it out. If you put a colon at the end of your procedure, it will not. But let's put it back, and you can see the information here. So let's test MyCalc. MyCalc of 2, 3 plus MyCalc of 3, 4. Now you might say, well, I like this calculation, and as always, Maple tries to return the full expression. Often we like a floating point result, so we can go back to our procedure and put an eval f, put in parentheses. Now notice again, if I try to quit now, there is a red arrow, red line, and that says that there is an error in this problem. If you think the text is too small, what you can do is put your cursor outside the code edit region, select Format, Styles, scroll down to Code, Modify, and change it to a larger value. So I'll put it to 14. The default is 12. When I hit OK and hit OK, and then I click back onto it, you can see now that our code is larger. So let's make sure we put a parentheses at the end, and now the two parentheses match up. And if we hit enter, everything looks good. And if we hit enter again, we now get a floating point value. So a couple of things. Again, it's good to add comments. Okay, it's proper to pass the correct information, and if you use a dollar sign, you force an error if it tries to put in too much information. I'll let you test that out yourself. And I always use the word return instead of assuming that the last expression in the procedure is always passed back, because it actually reminds me of what is being returned. One other comment I can make is if you want to add comments within, you can put in a number sign, and this is another comment. And for some help, it is always useful to know how to stop a procedure. So what if we create a procedure which includes a loop where all it's doing is continuously adding numbers, and there is no way to get out of the loop? So this is a very dumb loop. If we run it, now the thing is in a wait mode. Make sure you understand there is the stop sign to interrupt the current operation. And when you do, you get out. So we'll end our introduction with a few common problems that you should try to avoid. The first one is to end every statement with a colon or semicolon. You can actually see it here. I did not put a semicolon at the end of this statement. There is an error in trying to process it. Colon works as well. In writing out your code, make sure you include all operators. Notice this is 2 times A plus B. Many times we can put a space in Maple in 2D input. We'll think that's a multiplication, but not here. So when I hit enter, as you can see that it's missing this information. We fix it by putting in a multiplication sign and it works. Make sure you balance all your brackets. One of the nice things again with this Maple is that it will usually tell you, there is the other bracket. The same with the double quote. There is the other one. There's one here. There's one there. Let's put a semicolon there so we don't get the error. Things like that. And that's true with there. Those two match. Make sure you understand the difference between an assignment, which is labeled as colon equals, and equality. Many other programming languages use equal sign for assignment. Maple uses colon equals. A variable is assigned something. An equation means there is equality from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And finally, make sure you include the correct number and type of arguments to a procedure. Use the $sign to force an error if someone uses too many arguments. Thus ends Chapter 1 of the Maple Programming Guide, Introduction to Programming in Maple. The next topic will be Maple Language Elements. You can find a link to this chapter down in the description or on my website, gould.prof, Learning Maple.